You don't know who you are. You only know who works. And after years of repeating it, performance started feeling like personality. This story explores a curious contradiction. The harder we try to be authentic, the more we end up performing authenticity. It asks, what if being yourself isn't something you achieve, but something you allow? Let the words flow over you. Drift when you need to. Return when you're ready. Let's begin. Raj Sharma was 34 years old and had spent the last 3 years trying desperately to be authentic, to be himself, to live genuinely instead of performing for others. It had started with a book, one of those popular guides about finding your true self, shedding the masks, living authentically, being real. The book promised that once you discovered and expressed your authentic self, everything would click into place. Relationships would deepen. Work would feel meaningful. Life would have a quality of rightness it had been missing. Ben Rangful. Raj had followed the advice carefully. He'd done the exercises, written in journals about his true values, identified the ways he'd been performing rather than being, started expressing his real opinions instead of saying what people wanted to hear, dressed in ways that felt authentic to him rather than what was expected, quit his corporate job to pursue work that aligned with his true passions. And yet, 3 years later, he felt more lost than ever, more disconnected, more uncertain about who he actually was. The harder he tried to be authentic, the more he felt like he was performing authenticity, following a script about what an authentic person should do, trying to be natural in a way that felt fundamentally unnatural. It was exhausting and confusing and lonely. One evening, sitting in a coffee shop, trying to figure out what his authentic self actually wanted to do with the next hour, Raj noticed an elderly man watching him with amusement. The man had white hair and deep laugh lines around his eyes. He carried himself with a kind of ease that Raj found both attractive and mysterious. He seemed completely comfortable, completely himself, without any visible effort. The man approached Raj's table. You look like you're working very hard at something. Just trying to figure out what I want, Raj said. Ah, the man said, his eyes twinkling. The trying, that's the problem, isn't it? The man introduced himself as Martin. He asked if he could sit, and somehow within minutes Raj found himself confessing his entire struggle, the quest for authenticity, the books, the exercises, the constant effort to be real, and the growing sense that he was more lost now than when he'd started. Martin listened with complete attention. No judgment, no advice, just presence. When Raj finished, Martin said something unexpected. The authenticity you're seeking, you can't achieve it by trying. That's the paradox. The harder you try to be authentic, the more you're performing authenticity. And performance is exactly what you're trying to escape. But how else do I become authentic? Raj asked. If not by trying, you don't become it, Martin said gently. You allow it. There's a difference. He paused to let that settle. Right now, you're trying to be authentic the way you might try to be successful or fit or accomplished. You've made authenticity into another achievement, another goal to pursue, another thing to get right. But authenticity isn't a state you reach. It's what's already there when you stop performing. Raj felt something shift in his understanding, but he wasn't quite there yet. So what do I do? Nothing, Martin said. That's the point. You've been doing so much, trying so hard, working to discover your true self. But your true self isn't something hidden that requires excavation. It's what's already here when you stop trying to be anything. He stood to leave, then turned back. If you're interested in exploring this more, I facilitate a group. We meet weekly. It's not therapy, not coaching. Just people sitting together, learning to stop performing, even when we're trying to be authentic. He handed Raj a card with an address and time. Nothing else. No website, no description. Just a place and time. Come if you're curious, Martin said. Or don't. Either way is fine. Raj almost didn't go. The whole thing felt vaguely cult-like. A mysterious group with no information. Meeting. Weekly to what exactly? Sit together. But something in Martin's presence had been compelling. That ease, that lack of effort, that quality of being. Completely himself without any visible work. So the following Thursday, Raj found himself climbing stairs to a third-floor studio in an old building, downtown. Inside, 8 people sat in a circle on cushions. They ranged in age from 20s to 70s. They looked ordinary, not particularly enlightened or spiritual, or any of the things Raj had expected. Martin greeted him warmly, introduced him briefly to the group, then invited everyone to settle. "We'll begin as we always do," Martin said, "by sitting together in silence. No meditation instructions, no techniques. Just sitting, being here, noticing what arises without trying to change it or achieve anything with it." They sat, and Raj immediately felt uncomfortable. His mind raced. Was he doing it right? Should he be more relaxed? Was his posture authentic? Were other people judging how he was sitting? The irony struck him. Even here, supposedly learning to stop performing, he was performing, trying to sit authentically, trying to be present correctly, trying to be a good member of this group. After 20 minutes, Martin invited people to share if they wanted. No pressure, no requirement, just an opening. A woman in her 50s spoke first. "I spent the whole time trying to be present, and then trying not to try, and then judging myself for trying not to try. It's exhausting." Several people laughed with recognition, including Raj. "Yes," Martin said, "the trying to not try, that's the trap, isn't it? The mind wants to make everything into a task, even authenticity, even presence, even just being," a younger man spoke. "So how do we stop? If trying doesn't work, and trying not to try doesn't work, what does work?" "Nothing works," Martin said with a slight smile. "That's what makes this so frustrating for the achievement-oriented mind. There's no technique, no method, no right way. There's just noticing that you're trying, and in that noticing sometimes the trying relaxes on its own, not because you made it relax, but because you stopped, feeding it with more effort." Raj kept attending the group, week after week, and slowly, very slowly, he began to understand what Martin meant. Authenticity wasn't something to achieve. It was what remained when you stopped performing, when you stopped trying to be anything in particular, when you allowed yourself to just be whatever you actually were in that moment. But here was the tricky part. You couldn't try to stop trying. That was just more trying. You couldn't perform not performing. That was just a different performance. What you could do was notice. Notice when you were performing. Notice when you were trying to be authentic. Notice when you were working to be natural. And in that noticing, without judgment, without trying to change, it's sometimes the performance would relax on its own. Not always, not reliably, but sometimes. Martin explained it one evening using a metaphor. Imagine you're trying to fall asleep, he said. The harder you try, the more awake you become. Trying creates tension. Tension prevents sleep. But if you stop trying to fall asleep and just lie there, allowing yourself to be awake, sleep often comes on its own. Not because you did something right, but because you stopped doing the thing that was preventing it. Authenticity is the same, he continued. The trying creates a kind of tension, a self-consciousness. Hey, watching yourself to make sure you're being real. And that watching, that effort, that's what prevents authenticity. When you stop trying to be authentic and just allow yourself to be however you actually are, even if that includes being performative, even if that includes being uncertain, that's when something genuine can emerge. Raj practiced this in small ways. In conversations, he'd notice when he was trying to give an authentic response, trying to say what his real self would say. And in that noticing, sometimes he'd just speak without trying to be real or fake. Just speaking. Sometimes what came out was boring, sometimes awkward, sometimes the opposite of what he thought he should say, but it had a different quality, less effortful, less performed, more just happening. One evening, a new member joined the group, a woman named Sarah who'd been on her own authenticity quest. She'd read the same books as Raj, done similar work, and arrived at similar frustration. I've tried everything, she told the group. I've identified my values, set boundaries, started saying no to things that don't align with my authentic self, quit my job, ended a relationship, completely restructured my life around being real. And I feel more fake than ever, like I'm performing this authentic life I've built, following a script about what an authentic person does. The group nodded with recognition. What if, Martin said gently, you've been trying to be an idea of yourself rather than just being yourself? What's the difference? Sarah asked. An idea of yourself is fixed, Martin explained. It's a story, a narrative. The authentic me is this kind of person who does these kinds of things and values these particular values. And then you try to live according to that story. But that's still performance. You're performing the role of your authentic self. Actual authenticity is more alive than that, he continued. More responsive, more fluid. It changes moment to moment based on what's actually happening. Sometimes the authentic response is to go along with something. Sometimes it's to resist. Sometimes it's to be uncertain. The authentic you isn't a fixed character you've discovered. It's whatever's actually arising in response to life. Sarah looked confused and a bit frustrated. So I shouldn't have quit my job or ended my relationship? I'm not saying that, Martin clarified. Maybe those were exactly the right decisions, but were they coming From a place of allowing yourself to be honest about what you wanted? Or were they coming from trying to live up to an idea of what an authentic person would do? Sarah sat with that question. The rest of the group sat with her. Finally, she said, "I don't know. I thought I was being honest, but maybe I was just following a script about authenticity." "That's a genuine recognition," Martin said, not knowing. That uncertainty, that's more authentic than any certain answer could be. As months passed, Raj noticed something shifting. He was performing less, not because he was trying not to perform, but because he'd become more interested in noticing when he was performing than in stopping it. The noticing itself seemed to create space, a little gap between the impulse to perform and the actual performance. And in that gap, sometimes something else could happen, something less scripted, less calculated, more responsive to what was actually occurring. He started having different kinds of conversations, less curated, less carefully constructed to create a particular impression, more spontaneous. He'd say things he hadn't planned to say, express opinions he hadn't fully formed, admit uncertainty instead of pretending confidence. It was uncomfortable. People sometimes looked at him strangely. His LinkedIn network decreased as he stopped performing professional success. Some friends drifted away when he stopped being reliably entertaining or agreeable. But other connections deepened with people who appreciated the unpredictability, the realness, the permission his uncertainty gave them to be uncertain too. One evening, Martin pulled Raj aside after group. "You've changed. Do you notice?" "I feel less sure of myself," Raj said. "If that's what you mean." "Exactly," Martin smiled. "You've stopped trying to be anything in particular, even authentically yourself. You're just being, responding, allowing. It's messier, less impressive. But it's real." "I thought being authentic would feel more solid," Raj admitted. "More like I'd found myself and could rest in that. But instead I feel more fluid, more uncertain. Is that right?" "There's no right," Martin said. "But yes, that's what actual authenticity often feels like. Not solid, not fixed. More like water, taking the shape of whatever container it's in, responding to what's actually happening, rather than performing a predetermined role." Sarah's journey was different from Raj's. She struggled more, fought harder, kept trying to find the right way to be authentic. She'd given up the trying for a few days, then found herself trying again, trying to not try, trying to allow, trying to be fluid, each attempt becoming another performance. One evening she broke down in group, crying from frustration. "I can't do this. I can't stop trying. Every time I think I've stopped, I realize I'm just trying to stop trying. It's endless. I feel trapped in my own mind." The group sat with her distress, not trying to fix it, not offering solutions, just being present with her struggle. After a while, Martin spoke. "What if the trying is okay? What if you don't have to stop trying? What if trying to be authentic is just where you are right now, and that's allowed?" Sarah looked up, confused. "But I thought the whole point was to stop trying." "The point isn't any particular state," Martin said. "The point is to be honest about what's actually happening. And what's actually happening for you right now is trying. You're trying hard. You can't seem to stop. And that's real. That's authentic. The trying is authentic. But how does that help? Sarah asked. If I'm authentically trying to be authentic, I'm still trapped. Maybe, Martin said. Or maybe when you stop judging the trying, when you allow yourself to be exactly this person who tries hard, something shifts. Not because you made it shift, but because you stopped fighting with yourself. Sarah sat with this. The paradox of it. Authentically trying to be authentic, genuinely performing, really being fake. It made no logical sense, but something in it felt true. Over time, the group became less about learning techniques and more about being together while whatever was happening happened. Some evenings people were performed and fake and trying hard, and they said so. And that honesty about the fakeness was somehow more real than any authentic performance could be. Some evenings people were genuinely present and open and natural, not because they'd achieved authenticity, but because in that moment that's just what was arising. Some evenings were confused and messy and contradictory. People being authentic about being confused about what authentic even meant. And all of it was allowed. All of it was valid. All of it was part of the actual texture of being human rather than performing some idealized version of humanity. Raj found this deeply relieving. The permission to be contradictory, to be uncertain, to be performing, sometimes unreal, sometimes unclear about which was which. He stopped trying to be consistent, stopped trying to have a coherent, authentic self that could be understood and expressed. Instead, he allowed himself to be different in different moments, different with different people, different depending on what was actually arising, rather than what should arise according to some script about his true nature. It was destabilizing. His sense of identity became more fluid, less solid. Sometimes he'd catch himself wondering who he even was if not the person he'd been trying to be. But it was also freeing, the constant effort to maintain a consistent self, to be recognizably him, to perform his authentic identity. All of that could relax. He could just respond, just be, just allow whatever was actually happening rather than trying to make the right thing happen. 2 years after joining the group, Raj ran into an old friend who'd known him during his intense authenticity seeking phase. "You seem different," the friend observed. "More." "I don't know. More yourself?" Raj laughed. "I have no idea what that means, but I'll take it as a compliment. You used to try so hard," the friend continued. "To be real, to be genuine. It was kind of exhausting to be around, honestly. But now you just are, without all the effort." "I gave up," Raj said, "on being authentic. Or rather, I gave up trying to be authentic. And somehow, in giving up, something more genuine could happen." The friend looked confused. "But isn't that a contradiction? You achieved authenticity by not trying to achieve it." "Yes," Ross said. "Exactly. It's a paradox. The achievement-oriented mind wants there to be a technique, a method, a way to do it right. But authenticity doesn't work that way. It's not something you do, it's what happens when you stop doing so much." He paused, then added, "Or at least that's one way of describing it. Tomorrow I might describe it completely differently, and that would be equally true." That's part of the paradox, too. Nothing about it is fixed or final or fully expressible. They parted ways, and Raj walked home feeling. He wasn't even sure what he was feeling. Not happy, exactly. Not accomplished. Not authentic in any way he could define. Just here, present, alive, responding to the evening air and the city sounds and the randomness of thoughts, moving through his mind, without trying to be anything, without performing anyone, without achieving authenticity, just being whatever he was, which changed from moment to moment, which couldn't be captured in any fixed description, which was messy and contradictory and uncertain, and somehow, finally, that was enough. Martin continued facilitating the group for several more years. Raj remained a member, though he attended irregularly now, when he felt drawn to go rather than from obligation or effort to be consistent. The group itself changed. People came and went. Some stayed for a few sessions, some for years, each person working through their own version of the paradox. How do you be yourself when trying to be yourself creates performance? How do you allow authenticity when allowing becomes another thing you're trying to do? How do you stop performing when awareness of performance is itself a kind of performance? There were no answers, no resolutions, just ongoing inquiry, ongoing noticing, ongoing allowance of whatever was actually arising rather than what should arise. And in that allowance, in that releasing of the need for a fixed, authentic self, something genuine could emerge. Not always, not reliably, but sometimes moments of actual presence, actual responsiveness, actual aliveness, not because anyone had achieved authenticity, but because they'd stopped trying to achieve it. The paradox remained, would always remain, but it became less of a problem and more of an invitation to stop working so hard, to allow life to be as contradictory and uncertain as it actually was, to be human in all the messy, inconsistent, unperformable ways that humans actually are. That was the authenticity that couldn't be sought, could only be allowed. And in the allowing, in the releasing, in the stopping of effort, there it was. Not as a possession, not as an achievement, not as a state to maintain, just as the natural arising of what was actually there when the performance relaxed. Perhaps you too have tried to be authentic, have worked to discover your true self, have made authenticity into another achievement on the endless list of things to accomplish. And perhaps you've discovered the paradox that trying to be yourself creates a kind of self-consciousness that prevents you from actually being yourself. That performing authenticity is still performing. So what's the way out of this paradox? There isn't one. Not a technique, not a method, not a way to do it right. There's only noticing. Noticing when you're performing. Noticing when you're trying to be authentic. Noticing when you're trying not to try. And in that noticing, without judgment, without trying to change what you notice, sometimes the performance relaxes on its own. Not because you made it happen, but because you stopped doing the thing that was preventing it. You don't need to be anything in particular, not even authentically yourself. You can just be whatever you actually are in this moment, which will be different in the next moment and different again in the moment. After that, fluid, responsive, alive, contradictory, uncertain, human. Let yourself be that, not by trying, but by allowing. Let the effort relax. Let the performance ease. Let yourself be as messy and inconsistent as you actually are. Not as an achievement, not as a goal, just as what's already here when you stop trying to be anything else. Rest in that now. Let the trying dissolve into sleep. Let authenticity be or not be without your effort. Just rest, just allow, just be.